The phone privileges list was posted every Monday morning on the unit bulletin board. Nicolás Maduro had learned to check it religiously, though for the first 3 weeks his name never appeared. Phone access in MDC Brooklyn was limited, rationed like everything else in the facility. With over 600 inmates and only a dozen phones spread across different units, most prisoners got maybe 15 minutes per week if they were lucky. Priority went to inmates with good behavior records, those without disciplinary infractions, those who hadn't caused problems for guards or other prisoners. Maduro had been careful, extremely careful. He'd followed every rule, avoided every confrontation, maintained the lowest possible profile. He'd endured the gang members' tests and mockery without complaint. He'd cleaned his cell meticulously for inspections. He'd attended every required meeting and activity, all of it calculated toward one goal: earning phone privileges so he could call his daughter Rosa. On the 4th Monday of his detention, his name finally appeared on the list. Maduro, NT, Thursday, 2 p.m., 15 minutes. He stood staring at the notice for a full minute, committing the details to memory as if they might disappear. Thursday, 2 days away. 15 minutes to speak with someone from his former life. 15 minutes to hear a voice that wasn't hostile or indifferent. 15 minutes to pretend, however briefly, that he was still connected to something beyond these concrete walls. Rodriguez noticed his reaction when Maduro returned to their cell. "You got phone time?" "Thursday. 15 minutes. Who you calling?" "My daughter. In Venezuela." Rodriguez nodded. "First call's always the hardest. You're going to want to say everything at once, but 15 minutes goes fast. Have a plan. Know what you need to tell her, what you need to ask, and remember, everything's recorded. FBI, prosecutors, everyone listens to these calls. Don't say anything that could hurt your case." Maduro had known the calls were monitored, but Rodriguez's reminder brought home the reality of it. Even this small mercy came with surveillance, with the knowledge that strangers would be analyzing every word, looking for admissions or information they could use against him. What should I avoid? Don't talk about your case. Don't discuss evidence or what you did or didn't do. Don't talk about money or assets or anything financial. Don't make plans for anyone to do anything that might sound like obstruction. Basically, keep it personal. Ask how she's doing. Tell her you love her. Give her strength. But don't discuss business. The next 2 days passed with agonizing slowness. Maduro found himself rehearsing potential conversations in his head, imagining what Rosa would say, preparing responses. He hadn't spoken to her since that brief 3-minute call aboard the USS Iwo Jima, and so much had happened since then. The arraignment, the detention hearing, the transfer to MDC Brooklyn, the first weeks of navigating prison life. He needed to reassure her that he was surviving, that she shouldn't worry, that everything would somehow be okay. But he also desperately needed to hear that she was safe, that the threats from the cartels hadn't materialized, that his family wasn't suffering because of his situation. Thursday arrived. The morning dragged through breakfast, through rec time in the day room, through the endless waiting that defined prison life. Finally, at 1:45 p.m., a guard called his name. "Maduro, phone time. Let's go." He was escorted to a small room off the main corridor where the unit's phones were located. 4 phones mounted on the wall, each in a semi-private alcove that provided minimal sound dampening but no real privacy. 2 other inmates were already on calls, speaking in low, urgent tones in languages Maduro didn't recognize. The guard pointed to the 3rd phone. "You got 15 minutes, starting when you dial. Phone cuts off automatically at the time limit. Keep it clean, keep it appropriate. Any violations and you lose privileges permanently. Understood?" "Understood." The guard stepped back but remained in the room watching. Complete privacy was never an option. Maduro picked up the receiver, his hands trembling slightly. The phone was a standard institutional model, worn and scarred by thousands of previous calls. He dialed Rosa's number from memory, his heart pounding as he listened to the international connection clicking through. 1 ring, 2 rings, 3. What if she didn't answer? What if she'd changed her number? What if? "Hello, Her voice. His daughter's voice. After weeks of nothing but hostile strangers and indifferent guards, hearing Rosa was like being struck by lightning. "Rosa, it's your father." A sound came through the line that might have been a sob or a gasp. "Papa. Oh God, Papa. I didn't think you'd be able to call. They said you were in some terrible prison and I thought." "I'm okay," he said quickly. "Though it was a lie. I'm safe. They're treating me correctly. How are you? Are you safe?" "I don't know what safe means anymore," Rosa said, and he could hear tears in her voice. "Papa. Everything's falling apart. The government here, acting President Rodriguez, she's doing everything the Americans want. Elections are scheduled for March. The party's fractured. Some people are defending you, but others are saying you betrayed the revolution. I don't know who to trust. I don't know what to believe." Maduro closed his eyes, leaning his forehead against the cold concrete wall beside the phone. "Rosa, listen to me carefully. Whatever happens to me, whatever they say about me, you need to focus on your own safety. If things in Venezuela are unstable, if there's any danger, you should consider leaving. Go to a country where—" "Leave? Papa, I can't leave. All our assets are frozen. The Americans seized everything. The house, the accounts, everything. I'm living with friends because I have nowhere else to go. And leaving Venezuela? How? With what money? Using what passport? The Americans revoked my visa. I can't even travel to the US to be near you during the trial." The information hit Maduro like physical blows. He'd known the US government was seizing assets, but he hadn't realized they'd left Rosa with literally nothing. She was effectively homeless, dependent on the charity of friends who might turn against her at any moment as political winds shifted. "I'm so sorry," he said, his voice breaking. "Rosa, I'm so sorry for what's happened to you because of me." "What did you do, Papa?" The question came out anguished. "All these things they're saying on the news, the recordings they played in court, the drug money, the cartels. Is it true? Did you really do all those things?" He wanted to deny it, wanted to tell her it was all American propaganda, all lies designed to destroy him. But he was so tired of lying, even to himself. "It's complicated," he said finally. "I made choices that I believed were necessary for Venezuela, for the revolution, for keeping the country stable when everything was collapsing. But those choices had consequences, costs. And yes, some of what they're saying is true." "Oh God." Rosa's voice was barely a whisper. "Papa, how could you? I thought I was protecting the country, protecting our family, protecting the movement that your Uncle Hugo built, but I was wrong. I see that now. I made terrible choices, and now everyone's paying for them except me. I'm just sitting in this cell while you suffer, while Venezuela suffers. I'm sorry, Misha. I'm so sorry." They were both crying now, separated by thousands of miles, and by choices that couldn't be undone. The guard shifted uncomfortably, probably embarrassed by the raw emotion. The other inmates on phones had finished their calls and left, giving Maduro more privacy than he'd expected. But privacy didn't matter when the conversation was being recorded, when FBI analysts would be transcribing every word, when prosecutors would be reviewing the transcript for anything they could use. "How's your mother?" Maduro asked, trying to shift to safer ground. "Do you have any contact with her?" The pause on the other end was too long. "Papa, there's something you need to know about Mama." His heart seemed to stop. "What? Is she hurt? Is something wrong?" "She's not hurt. But Papa, she made a deal with the Americans. About 2 weeks ago. I heard it from someone at the Justice Department who leaked it to the press. Mama's going to testify against you. They offered her 5 years instead of 25, if she cooperates. She took the deal." The words didn't make sense at first. Maduro's brain couldn't process them. Cilia was going to testify against him. His wife of 32 years, who had stood beside him through everything, was going to take the stand and provide evidence for the prosecution. "That's not possible," he said. "Rosa, that's not true. Your mother would never." "Papa, I'm sorry, but it's true. It was in the Washington Post yesterday. The prosecutors confirmed it. Mama signed a cooperation agreement. She's going to testify about your involvement with the drug cartels, about financial crimes, about everything she knows. In exchange, she'll serve 5 years and then be released. Papa, she chose herself over you. The phone felt impossibly heavy in his hand. Maduro slid down the wall until he was sitting on the floor, the receiver still pressed to his ear, barely able to breathe. Celia had betrayed him. After everything they'd been through together, after all his refusals to cooperate specifically to protect her, she had taken a deal and was going to testify against him. Are you still there? Rosa's voice sounded distant, tinny. Papa, I'm here. I don't know what to say. I'm so angry at her. So angry at both of you for creating this situation, but I'm also terrified. Papa, if Mama testifies, will they come after me too? Will they try to force me to testify? I don't know anything about your business, but they might not believe that. They might think I'm lying to protect you. So, don't talk to them, Maduro said urgently. Rosa, if anyone from the FBI or the prosecutors tries to contact you, don't say anything without a lawyer present. Tell them you're invoking your right to counsel. I'll have my attorney reach out to you, help you find representation in Venezuela or wherever you need it, but don't talk to them. How am I supposed to pay for a lawyer, Papa? I don't have any money. You don't have any money that isn't seized. Who's going to represent me for free? It was a good question, and Maduro had no answer. So, the machine he'd built, the system that was supposed to protect his family, had collapsed completely. Rosa was alone, vulnerable, and he was powerless to help her from a prison cell thousands of miles away. I'll figure something out, he said, knowing it was empty reassurance. Just be careful. Trust no one. Don't talk about me or your mother or anything related to the case. Live quietly, keep your head down and wait for this to blow over. Blow over? Papa, this isn't going to blow over. Your trial is going to be the biggest news story in the world. Everyone's going to be watching, and I'm going to be known forever as the daughter of Nicolás Maduro, the drug trafficking president. That's my identity now. That's what people will think of when they hear my name. She wasn't wrong. Whatever happened at trial, whatever sentence he received, the stigma would follow his family for generations. Rosa would carry the burden of his crimes for the rest of her life. Any children she had would grow up with the knowledge that their grandfather was a convicted criminal. The legacy he was leaving wasn't revolution or resistance or even political controversy. It was shame. You can change your name, Maduro said desperately. You can move somewhere, start over, build a new life where people don't know who you are. I shouldn't have to hide from my own name. Rosa said, anger creeping into her voice. You did this, Papa. You made these choices. You involved yourself with criminals and cartels and corruption. And now I'm paying the price for your decisions. Me and thousands of other Venezuelans who suffered because of your government's failures. I know. Do you really understand what you've done? Not just to Venezuela, not just to the revolution, but to actual people, to families who couldn't afford food because of hyperinflation, to people who died because hospitals didn't have medicine, to the millions who fled the country looking for any chance at survival. Do you understand that your corruption and incompetence destroyed lives? Her words were like knives, each one finding its mark because they were true. He'd told himself he was protecting the revolution, maintaining stability, doing what was necessary. But the truth was that he'd been protecting himself and his position while millions suffered. I understand, he said quietly, and I know there's nothing I can say that will make it better. No apology that will undo the harm. But Rosa, despite everything, I love you. That hasn't changed. That will never change. I love you too, Papa. Her voice was thick with tears, but I don't know if love is enough anymore. I don't know if anything is enough. A mechanical voice interrupted. You have 60 seconds remaining. 1 minute left. 60 seconds before the connection was cut, and he returned to his cell, and Rosa returned to her uncertain life in Venezuela. Maduro tried to think of something meaningful to say, some final message that would help her, but his mind was blank with grief. Be strong, He finally managed. Whatever happens, survive. That's all that matters. Just survive. You too, Papa. I'll try to call her right if I can. But I don't know when. I don't know anything anymore. I love you too. The line went dead with a click that seemed to echo in the sudden silence. The mechanical 15-minute cutoff had arrived exactly on time, indifferent to the fact that their conversation was unfinished, that so much remained unsaid. Maduro sat on the floor, still holding the receiver, until the guard came over and gently took it from his hand. Time's up, Maduro. Back to your cell. He stood mechanically, following the guard through the corridors, without really seeing where he was going. Other inmates stared at him as he passed, probably noticing the tears on his face, the complete absence of composure. He didn't care. Let them see. Let them know that the former president could be broken by a 15-minute phone call. Rodriguez was in the cell when Maduro returned, working on legal documents as usual. He looked up, took one look at Maduro's face, and set down his pen. That bad? Maduro sat on his bunk, then immediately lay down, turning to face the wall. My wife is cooperating with the prosecutors. She's going to testify against me. Rodriguez was quiet for a moment. Yeah, I heard rumors about that. Word travels fast in here, even about things happening outside. I'm sorry, man. That's rough. 32 years, Maduro said to the wall. We were married for 32 years. We built everything together. And she's going to sit in a courtroom and tell a jury about my crimes so she can reduce her sentence by 20 years. Can't really blame her, Rodriguez said. And there was no judgment in his voice, just stating fact. 25 years versus 5 years. That's her entire future. She makes the deal, she could be out in 5 years. Still have time to rebuild some kind of life. She refuses, she dies in prison. Most people would take the deal. I refused the deal, Maduro said bitterly. When they offered me cooperation, I said no. Because I thought maintaining my integrity was more important than freedom. Because I thought loyalty meant something. Because I didn't want to betray the people who trusted me. And meanwhile, my wife had no such scruples. That's on you, not her, Rodriguez said bluntly. You made your choice for your reasons. She made hers for her reasons. Can't expect other people to sacrifice themselves just because you decided to. Maduro rolled over to look at Rodriguez. You would have taken the deal in a heartbeat. I got offered cooperation too, you know. They wanted me to testify against the people who supplied the weapons I was trafficking, said they'd recommend 10 years instead of 20 if I gave up my sources. And you refused? Yeah. But not for the reasons you did. I refused because the people I'd be testifying against, they're serious people. Cartel connected. Organized crime level serious. I testify against them, I'm dead. Maybe not immediately, but eventually. Someone gets to me in prison, or when I get out, or they go after my family. That's different from your situation. Your wife testifying doesn't put her in danger from you. You're not going to order a hit on her. You're not that kind of criminal. Despite everything else you did, it was true. Maduro felt betrayed, devastated, but he didn't want Celia dead. He wanted her to have refused, to have stood by him, to have demonstrated that their decades together meant something. But he didn't want her to sacrifice 20 years of her life for his sake either. My daughter hates me, Maduro said. She's homeless because all our assets were seized. She can't leave Venezuela because the Americans revoked her visa. She's alone and vulnerable, and there's nothing I can do to help her from in here. And she knows about what I did. The drugs, the cartels, all of it. She asked me directly if the accusations were true, and I couldn't lie to her anymore. What'd you tell her? That I made choices I thought were necessary, but that some of what they're saying is true, that I was wrong, that I'm sorry. Rodriguez nodded slowly. That took guts. Admitting it to your kid. Most people in here still lying to their families, still pretending they're innocent, still blaming the system. You owned it. What good does owning it do? It doesn't change anything, doesn't help Rosa, doesn't help Venezuela, doesn't help me, just makes everyone feel worse. Maybe. Or maybe it's the first honest thing you've said in years. Maybe your daughter needed to hear that her father can still tell the truth, even when the truth is ugly. Maduro thought about that as the afternoon wore on. The truth was ugly. The truth was that he'd been a corrupt leader who had facilitated drug trafficking, embezzled money, and presided over the destruction of his country. The truth was that his family was suffering because of his choices. The truth was that his wife had abandoned him to save herself. And the truth was that he was going to spend the rest of his life in prison, dying slowly in a cage, alone and hated. The evening came with its usual routine. Dinner in the chow hall where Maduro ate mechanically without tasting anything. Returned to the cell for the evening count. Locked down at 9 p.m. The fluorescent lights dimmed, but never went completely dark. Maduro lay on his bunk, replaying the phone conversation in his mind. Rosa's voice. Her anger, her fear, her pain. The moment when she'd told him about Celia's betrayal. The 60-second warning that had cut their conversation short just when he'd wanted to say so much more. He thought about Celia in her own cell somewhere. Probably in a better facility now that she was cooperating. She'd have more privileges, better treatment, maybe even protective custody to keep her safe from any inmates who might target her for being a snitch. In 5 years she'd walk out of prison, still relatively young, able to rebuild her life somehow, while he would still be here, or in some even worse facility, serving a life sentence with no hope of release. The jealousy he felt was irrational but powerful. He'd chosen principle over freedom, loyalty over self-preservation, and what had it gotten him? Nothing but deeper suffering while everyone around him made deals and moved on with their lives. "You still awake up there?" Rodriguez's voice came from the lower bunk. "Yeah. Look, I know this is hard. Probably the hardest day you've had since you got arrested. But you're going to have more days like this. More phone calls with bad news. More revelations about people betraying you. More moments where you realize how completely fucked your situation is. That's just how prison works. It breaks you down piece by piece. Tests you constantly to see how much you can take. How do you survive it? You find something to hold on to. Some reason to keep going even when everything's shit. For some guys it's their kids. For others it's religion. Some people it's just stubbornness, refusing to let the system break them. You gotta figure out what your thing is, because without something to hold on to, prison will destroy you. Maduro thought about what he had to hold on to. Rosa, certainly, though their relationship was damaged and she was suffering because of him. The possibility of appeal, though Richardson had already warned him that appeals rarely succeeded. Some sense of legacy or historical vindication, though that seemed increasingly unlikely as more evidence of his crimes became public. "What's your thing?" Maduro asked Rodriguez. "My daughter. She's 15, living with her mother in Puerto Rico. I haven't seen her in 2 years since before I got arrested. But I write her every week and sometimes she writes back. And I think about getting out someday, even if it's 10 or 15 years from now. Being able to meet her kids if she has them. Being a grandfather, being part of her life again. That's what keeps me going. The idea that this isn't forever, that there's still future ahead if I can just survive long enough to reach it." "I don't have a future," Maduro said. "Even if I somehow avoid life without parole. Even if I only get 40 years, I'll be over 100 years old when I'm released. I'm going to die in prison. There's no future for me to hope for. Then you better find something else to hold on to. Because hope or no hope, you still got to live day by day until you don't. And doing that without something to believe in, some reason to keep going, that's when people break. That's when they end up on suicide watch or losing their minds or becoming shells of who they used to be." Maduro had seen those inmates already. The ones who sat in the day room staring at nothing, who shuffled through daily routines without any apparent awareness. The ones who had been in prison so long that they'd forgotten how to be human. Was that his future? Years or decades of gradual deterioration until he became one of those hollow men. The thought was terrifying. "How was the call before all the bad news?" Rodriguez asked. "Before your daughter told you about your wife. How was it hearing her voice?" "Good," Maduro admitted. For the first few minutes before everything went wrong, it was good. Just hearing someone I love, someone who loves me despite everything. It reminded me that I was still a person, still a father, still connected to something beyond this place. That's something then, that's worth holding on to. Is it, when that connection just brings pain, when loving people and being loved just means more suffering, when things go wrong? Yeah, Rodriguez said quietly. Even then, because the alternative is not caring about anything or anyone, and once you stop caring, you're already dead. You're just waiting for your body to catch up with your spirit. They fell silent, each man alone with his thoughts in the darkness that never fully came. Maduro thought about Rosa struggling in Venezuela, about Cilia preparing to testify against him, about the trial that would consume months of his life before delivering an inevitable verdict. He thought about the phone call, about those 15 minutes that had somehow contained both the best and worst moments of his week. And he thought about Rodriguez's words, that he needed something to hold on to, some reason to keep going, that caring even when it hurt was better than the alternative of emotional death. Maybe Rosa could be that reason. Not hope for reconciliation or redemption, but simply the knowledge that his daughter existed, that she was surviving, that some part of him continued in her even if they never spoke again. Maybe that was enough. Maybe it had to be enough, because Rodriguez was right about one thing: hope or no hope, future or no future. Maduro still had to live day by day, still had to wake up each morning and face the grinding reality of prison, still had to find some way to survive mentally and emotionally, not just physically. The phone call had devastated him. Learning about Cilia's betrayal had shattered something he thought was unbreakable. But he was still breathing, still thinking, still capable of feeling pain, which meant he was still capable of feeling anything at all. Thank you, Maduro said to Rodriguez, for talking to me tonight, for helping me process this. That's what Cellies do. We survive together, or we don't survive at all. Now get some sleep. Tomorrow's going to come, whether you're ready or not. But sleep didn't come easily. Maduro lay awake for hours, listening to the sounds of the prison at night, thinking about everything that had been lost and everything that remained. The phone call had been a gift and a curse, a connection to the world beyond these walls, but also a reminder of how much that world had moved on without him. A chance to hear his daughter's voice, but also to learn truths he wasn't ready to face. In the darkness, Maduro made a decision. He would request another phone call in a week, would try to reach Rosa again, to continue the conversation they'd been forced to end prematurely, would find some way to help her even from prison, even with no resources, even when it seemed impossible. Because Rodriguez was right. The alternative to caring was death. And Maduro wasn't ready to die yet. Not spiritually, not emotionally. His body might spend decades in a cage, but his mind and heart could still reach out, could still love, could still hope in whatever small ways remained available. It wasn't much, but in prison, in the darkness, in the absolute bottom of human experience, it was something, and something was infinitely better than nothing. The next phone call was scheduled for the following Thursday. Maduro had already started planning what he would say. 7 days to prepare. 7 days to find strength he didn't know he had. 7 days to practice being a father from a prison cell, loving from a distance, hoping against hope that some small part of his humanity could survive the destruction of everything else. The call had broken him, but maybe, just maybe, the next call could begin to rebuild something from the pieces. It wasn't much of a plan, but it was all he had. And in prison, having anything at all was a kind of victory.